Call the meeting to order. This is the June 23rd, 2015 meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission of the Town of Fairfield. First item is Bills and Communication, the meeting minutes of June 9th, 2015. So we need one alternate to sit for Commissioner Kennelly. Commissioner Noonan?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. You weren't here last week, so who's next?
Well, then that would be, Mark would be next.
Commissioner Corcoran. Okay, you're going to sit for Commissioner Kennelly, all right? So can I have a motion?
Just for the minutes or just for the...
Motion to approve by Commissioner Jacobson, second by Commissioner Corcoran. Everybody have a copy of those? Any questions, comments? I didn't see anything that you, any edits? All set? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are approved unanimously. Next item is 3685 Black Rock Turnpike, request of Black Rock Congregational Church for 100% release of a $303,498 bond pertaining to special exception improvements in a AA zone.
Okay, this was the complete reconstruction of Black Rock Congregational Church, which was originally approved by this commission in February of 2011. We had a 50% reduction back in February of 2015. This is a request to release the remaining 50%. It's all done. You've got a report from our engineering department. If you haven't been up there, you might want to take note of this. This probably is our largest installation so far of pervious pavement. The majority of their parking lot is pervious, and it was interesting to see how that performed over the wintertime. It did just fine. So everything's done in accordance with the plan, and we're recommending full release.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the bond release.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Barrett,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Alessi. Any discussion? We do have a note from Laura Pooley in our files as well. Any other discussion? No? All ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The item carries unanimously. Next is 1262 Post Road, request of Stephen Rothwell for 100% release of a $32,055 bond pertaining to special permit requirements in the Center Design District.
This project was the addition and redevelopment of the former post office site on the Post Road downtown, originally approved in April of 2013. We had a 50% release a couple of months ago. We held back, waiting to see how the landscaping kind of survived the winter. Everything is looking good, and you do have a report from engineering recommending the full release.
Thank you. And,
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Commissioner Jacobson. And Commissioner Corcoran is no longer on for Commissioner Kennelly. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Coleman. Does anybody have any questions? Same issue. We have a note in our file. Recommend 100% release. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Item carries unanimously. Next is new applications to recommend a public hearing. First is a zoning regulation amendment application of Attorney Frank Johnson to amend Section 12.4.28 regarding doggy daycare.
This should be familiar to you. You heard this not long ago and was denied without prejudice, mainly because the commission felt that it should be a special exception use rather than a zoning compliance use. That is what's proposed, along with some other provisions of the regulations as an outgrowth of the discussion from fairly recently. So it's back for the second attempt at the amendment.
Okay. A motion to send to public hearing.
I'll make a motion to send a public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Alessi. Second by Commissioner Coleman. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
I just see the way it's worded, it says to amend section 12.4.28.
Right.
That's the section that calls it a special exception.
Correct.
Is there any language there to amend section 27, insert a line for what dog daycare requires, as we do with all the
Yeah,
other special.
they've kind of, rather than splitting it, it's more of a paragraph instead of just listing dog daycare. It says dog daycare, not abutting a residential district and a couple other things. Rather than amending both sections, they've kind of rolled those
Okay.
limiting criteria into this proposal.
We could choose to split it out to make it consistent with where it. or-
You could, but I mean, it's not, it just has some limiting language in the
Okay.
use category.
But there is limiting language. I mean, the purpose of special exception was just, when it's a special exception, there's something special about it.
Right,
That requires
right.
that limiting language. Okay.
Right, there are general conditions of approval already in section 27, but the main limiting factor is they're proposing in the use is that it can't abut a residential district, which was one of the main concerns that came out of the hearing.
Okay.
If you'd rather that be
No, it's okay. I'm
split into
here.
section 27, we can arrange for
I
that
just
before we
wanted to
get
make
to the
sure it
hearing.
wasn't incomplete before we heard it again. And
Yeah.
I said, you missed something, we have to write,
Yeah.
we're not going to write a reg on the fly.
Well, perhaps, since you've seen this already, it may be prudent for us to forward it to you before we schedule it for hearing. You can recommend it to hearing before we physically schedule it and publish it. If there's anything that jumps out of you that you think ought to be corrected before we publish, then we can certainly do that. And I'd be happy to refer that to you for comment.
That would be fine with me. I mean,
Okay.
I'm okay with moving it to public hearing. I just want to make sure we're not moving something to public hearing that's.
No.
I'm not saying we're going to approve it or deny
No,
it.
we have the same interest. We don't, if there's something glaring that you see already that's going to knock it out of the box, let's
Okay.
not waste everybody's time.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Next is 154 Kings Highway Cutoff, special exception application of attorney Frank Johnson to establish a doggy daycare.
This is, of course, the companion application that, since their regulation proposal requires a special exception, they're also making a companion special exception application.
Very good. Motion?
Motion to move to public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Alessi,
Second.
second by Commissioner Kennelly. All right, so we just talked about this. Anybody have any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Next is zoning regulation amendment application of the Affordable Housing Committee of the Town of Fairfield to amend sections 10.6.9, 10.6.10, 10.17.3, and 10.17.5 regarding various density and design standards for affordable housing.
This is a proposed implementation of several recommendations that are embodied in the amended Affordable Housing Plan that you guys have seen and had some discussions with the Affordable Housing Committee. This has to do with density bonuses for affordable, kind of reworking some of the design standards that are considered unwieldy and a direct result of recommendations made in the Affordable Housing Plan.
Very good. Can I have a motion?
Motion to move to public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Kennelly, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any questions? Discussion? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Next is zoning regulation amendment, application of the Affordable Housing Committee of the Town of Fairfield to amend section 25.7 of the zoning regulations and section 2.7 of the subdivision regulations regarding inclusionary zoning.
This is also a separate proposal from the same group discussed in the Affordable Housing Plan. What this is proposing is a regulation that would require that there be a 10% set aside of below market rate units for any project that creates a net of 10 or more dwelling units.
Companion, if you will.
Yep.
Very
Move to
good.
public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Kennelly,
Second.
second by Commissioner Alessi. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Next is 524 Pequot Avenue, special exception application of Southport Congregational Church regarding the construction of a new storage building in the Residence A and R3 zones.
I don't have much here. This is Southport Congregational Church. They're looking to build a storage barn on the back of their property. It does require special exception.
Very good. Questions? It's going to be a busy session on public hearings.
Public hearing.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Kennelly. Second by Commissioner Calabrese. Questions, comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions?
We don't anticipate we'll schedule all these for the same.
2 weeks. We're going to do a 3-day, 24-hour session. Next is 309 Barberry Road, special exception application of the American Institute for Neurointegrative Development, Inc., to establish a school in an existing building in the AA zone.
You may or may not be familiar with this existing facility, known locally as Giant Steps. It's a school presently on the property for autistic kids. It's a pretty intensive school. It has a very high faculty-to-student ratio. If you're familiar with that campus, it was a former diocesan parish elementary school in a small high school. There's 2 buildings there, in which they are in one. They are looking to expand into the second existing building on the property and do some renovations. It is an expansion of their existing school facility and does require special exception.
Very good.
Make a motion.
to approve, Mr. Chairman, with the public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Kennelly,
Second.
second by Commissioner Alessi. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? It's moved to public hearing unanimously. Next is old business, 92 Post Road, special permit application of Taza Osteria and Bar pertaining to an enclosed patio and new vestibule in the design commercial district.
We're recommending this matter be tabled, Mr. Chairman. As we outlined in an email, there was some issue of the parking calculation that arose at the last hearing. That proved to be an incorrect calculation, so that requires them to revisit the matter before the Zoning Board of Appeals. They are pending on July 2nd, so depending on that outcome, we recommended tabling until we know what that outcome is.
And they're aware of that too.
Yes, they've already made, yes, they are.
Yeah. So, all right, very good.
Make a motion to table it.
Motion to table the item by Commissioner Alessi,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jacobson. Any discussion on this? No? I think this is the appropriate. They're back at ZBA. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion to table carries unanimously. Tabled. Next is compliances, 116 Sherman Street, application of Jennifer Marks and Dominique Miller to establish a retail use in an existing building in the Center Design District.
Okay, this site is on the northerly side of Sherman Street. If you know where the parking structure is behind, the downtown development there, to the west of that, there are a couple of older houses that have been converted to office over the years, and then there's a high-rise kind of building adjacent to this. Well, this is one of those buildings. It was an accounting office for many years. The accountant who owns the building has moved into a larger space. These folks are looking to establish a psychic business in here, which it's kind of, I don't know if either fish nor fowl, but more akin, in our view, to a retail service. People are paying a fee for a service. They have been located elsewhere in town under a retail umbrella, so we thought it prudent to do a change in use from office to retail. In the Center Design, this is a 1,700 square foot building. Actually requires less parking for retail in the Center Design District than it does for office, so there's no increase in the number of parking spaces required here. They're just going to basically occupy the building as is. They do have a proposal for a sign that I apologize, I didn't see the pictures till after I sent this out. There's an existing wooden sign out front that they're going to replace, and I can hand some of these pictures down, and they want to put a panel on the chimney on the wall. They're both 2 foot by 3 foot wooden panels. But essentially, it's a change of use application.
Where were they before in town?
They were on Sanford Street. at the end, by the last building on Sanford Street.
Opposite 55 degrees?
Correct.
Kind of disappointed the accountants in the site, these kind of shares, helpful.
So, Commissioner Canelli, you can,
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, for discussion purposes, to approve.
motion to approve by Commissioner Canelli,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Alessi.
What, can I ask a question?
Can you use the mic?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, thank you. Jim, what's the story with the sign? Is it compliant and stuff like that?
Yes.
I mean, that's not before us, but I was just curious about that. At first glance, I don't have an issue with it, but I'm open to hearing concerns about it.
I have concerns.
Commissioner Alessi.
When these people were on Sanford Street, they had a neon sign that lit up the whole street. And after repeated requests from the town to put it out, if I'm mistaken, they did it. Am I correct in that?
Well, there wasn't.
There was resistance at the
Well,
time?
it wasn't prohibited at the time. They've been told they cannot have any illuminated window signage in this location. It's not permitted under the regulations.
I believe it was after that regulation was written that we had a problem, I remember.
It was before. I remember the issue when it came up, but we had not yet adopted the prohibition for interior window signage.
I'm not going to be supporting this application.
Commissioner Barron.
I have two questions. One, the sign.
Mhm.
Scott, that is the sign application with this, for psychic and the phone number?
Correct.
I mean, it's in a house, shouldn't it have the address on it, or we can cite, 30 Sherman, whatever?
Yeah, they'd have to put 116 on the pole
Don't we
sign.
require
Yeah.
that?
We do. That's an existing sign that they're moving from another location. Yes, we can require them to do that.
Right, should have that. I mean, I realize the phone number might be nice for their business, but we're concerned with people finding the
Yep.
place. And I realize, that may be the only psychic on the street, but it's still supposed to have the address. And, my second question, in viewing this as a service, I understand the rationale. Would we treat a tattoo parlor the same way?
Yes.
So a tattoo parlor could go into this house under a regulation? I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, I'm just trying to equate it with other uses. that
Yes.
maybe- Okay.
Do we know their hours of operation?
I do not.
Because I believe they were open late at the last location.
They didn't make a distinction in their letter.
Is the letter you're referring to this document?
It is.
Are we interpreting that as their statement of use?
I would say yes. I will. You can interpret it as you see fit, but that is their attempt at the letter of intent.
Okay. Well, all right, so we have a motion to approve that's been seconded on the table. Is it clear that these signs are before us for approval as their sign plan as well?
Yes.
So, I mean,
You can,
yeah, but the condition of approval means that they could, that the numbers that they put on could be something that doesn't meet our regulations or what have you. I mean, the signs as they are presented are non-compliant with our regulations.
you can parse it out if that's...
Yeah. I mean, we could approve the change in use. I mean, it is what it is. But conditioned upon a subsequent application for a compliant sign plan. I think that perhaps staff could communicate to the applicant that we might prefer a sign that was a little bit more in keeping with the neighborhood and the style of the street, our town.
I don't, okay.
Have the address.
Yep.
Well, and which is in compliance with our regulations and in harmony with the neighborhood and the district. I mean,
No, I'm
that is something that we could do.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying for a psychic, we have 1, 2, 3 storage rooms and a storage closet. I don't, you know, this is not making sense to me either, their layout for what they need and what they want. What are we storing in a second place? So, I'm not gonna be supporting this application, change of use or the sign, so that's how I feel about this application.
Commissioner Calabrese.
I don't really have any issues with the business going in here. My concern is the sign. And I think if we can get that straightened out and make sure that the sign is in compliance with our regulations, then we're good to go. But again, I don't have any issue with the actual business.
Yeah.
None of my business.
I tend to agree, which is why I suggested that we could, you know, parse the application this way. You know, there are businesses of all types, and there are people who frequent businesses of all types.
Well,
And if it's in compliance with our regulations, then, you know, there's not much we can say
I
about
have a question.
it. Commissioner Jacobson.
I just have a question. I would like to know, I'd like to see a formal sign plan. I'd like to know the hours that the business is going to be operating. Is there a way we could table this and have him come back with that information? Again, I don't have any problems with, they were open very late on Sanford Street with a horrible neon sign.
You know, I mean, you raise a good point, and, you know, the reason I asked about the statement of use is because typically we have, you know, hours of operation and the kinds of services, you know,
Yeah.
restaurants submit, not even that they have to, but they send, you know, sometimes submit menus and the like. You know, this is pretty sparse, when it comes to the statement of use. Mr. Barretts?
Yeah, I would agree with what Commissioner Jacobson said. I mean, I understand the definition, I just looked up the definition, and, you know, we have to apply our regulations as they're written. We have a kind of a general provision in our, remember, this is our center design district, this is the commercial district, that, you know, for stores where goods or service is rendered primarily retail, and if that's how we define it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it being a psychic, but the sign is one thing, and this is not what we require a statement of use. I realize not everybody has access to, you know, people to prepare it, but, you know, at least hours of operation, like how their business is going to operate. This is probably
Number of employees?
number of employees. This is one of the more sketchy ones I think I've ever seen. I think the sketchiest was a restaurant that says we are putting in a Chinese restaurant. They just told us that was their statement. This could use a little, that was a it was a statement. But I think here we do need the hours of operation and more how the business is going to operate. So, you know, I understand it's a permitted use, that's fine, but I like to see the statement of use expanded and a true sign plan, or else we could approve the use without any sign. They're probably not going to like that, so I think they should come back with the sign.
Other information I think which would be helpful is, you know, how many clients they expect to see on a regular basis, you know, and that kind of thing. It would certainly give us a better understanding of a reason to be applying the regulations and approving it. So we have you know, a number of options here. You know, we could simply deny it with a courtesy message back to the applicant to refile through staff with some of these recommendations. We could table it. We could split it up. I mean, based upon everything that I've heard, I don't think that approving the application would be appropriate. I mean, I do think that a better statement of use would be appropriate. Mr. Calvert?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, if they want to withdraw the approval motion and table it, I think that gives the applicant, you know, a better take on this, and they can get us the additional information that we're looking for, rather than just denying it outright and going through it again.
So, a question for staff. If we did table it, would they be permitted to supplement the application with, you know, the additional material that would be allowable, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there we have that. And and it's not anything that would go to a public hearing or anything.
That's entirely
Yeah,
your
you
discretion.
you can have a public hearing.
So I guess that would be, that would be another option, would be to, require a public hearing, have them resubmit and have a public hearing on it.
I think it's a good idea.
On the public hearing, I think that, I mean, it seems like if they provided a statement of use, if they provided us with a sign plan that's more in keeping with, first with our regulations, and then additionally what's been asked, which is in keeping of the neighborhood, I do think that that probably meets what we need here. I'm always willing when there's a significant challenging compliance before us to do a public hearing, but considering how we've just passed, we've just approved so many public hearings upcoming, it just, I don't know. It's up to you. My view is I'm comfortable with tabling this, was my motion originally, but, to go all the way to a public hearing on this, I'm not so sure. But.
Yeah. I mean, given everything that we've said, I would be most comfortable just tabling it and giving them suggestions about, how they could improve the application, for us and themselves,
Let me just say, if they can't divine our intentions from that, then I would, then I would say that, yeah, then we can bring them before us with the public hearing. If they submit another application that they're looking for us to sort of, I don't know, kind of divine what they're looking to do, what they're trying to do, then no, let's bring them in here and have them explain it and speak to us. But let's start with this, so let's table.
All right, so, Mr. Kelly, it was your motion, you're gonna amend your
Yep.
motion to a motion to table?
Amend my motion to a motion to table this item, 3A, 3B, 4A, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Very good, and Commissioner Alessi, you agree with that? Good, so, all right, motion to table's been made and seconded. Any other questions, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? Items tabled unanimous. Can you take a break? Yep. Ready?
Yeah,
All right.
5 minutes would be good. Just 5 minutes would be
You
good.
need 5 minutes? Okay. All right.
I'll start now.
We're going to adjourn for 5 minutes before the public hearing.
Matt, I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm not sure your mic is on. Okay, maybe move a little closer.
Okay. I spent like 5 hours on the phone today. Call the meeting back to order. Next is public hearing. For those members of the public that are here, the applicant will have a first round. They'll present their application. Then we'll go to public hearing. Everybody will have a chance to speak that wants to speak. No time limit. Just ask that you keep your comments germane to the application, and everyone who wants to speak will be heard. Then the applicant has the last word. They'll have a rebuttal, and then once the applicant closes its rebuttal, the public hearing on that item will be closed. Okay? So the first item for public hearing is 652 Commerce Drive, special permit application of Bishop Design and Development for an addition to an existing building undergoing renovation in the Design Commercial Commerce Drive District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm representing the applicant. The real party in interest here, obviously, is Bishop Development, but also Orthopedic Specialty Group, OSG, as I refer to them in my statement of use. With me tonight from OSG is our CEO, Mr. Steve Fiore, and Dr. Dante Britis of our practice. You'll recall that in August of 2013, after a public hearing, the Commission was good enough to approve a special permit and site plan approval to convert an existing retail building, the old Sims building at 652 Commerce Drive, to medical office use for Orthopedic Specialty Group. At the time, we were very excited, still are. I think it's a very significant aesthetic enhancement to the facade of the building. At the time, I also told you about the history of OSG. Briefly, OSG traces its roots back to 1946. It offers a complete range of orthopedic services in Fairfield, Stratford, and Shelton, ambulatory service care, physical therapy, and imaging services. The new approved facility that you approved in 2013 also is going to establish OrthoFast, which is an orthopedic urgent care walk-in center. The primary purpose of what we did in conjunction with the Commission in 2013 was to develop a facility that will significantly enhance the overall patient experience for all of our patients, many of whom are obviously Fairfield residents. It's going to leave us with much more convenient, accessible, and efficient clinical space. So why are we here? Well, we're here because now under construction and looking at some state regulations and other factors, we realize that we need this additional space, a small area, 3,217 square feet. And that's what the addition that we propose is for tonight. Approximately 1,000 square feet of the addition will be for use in increasing our capacity for outpatient surgery. That's the issue of state regulations. State regulations require increased space at this time for pre-op and post-op services, need for some additional room to meet requirements for sterilization and storage of equipment. So that's 1,000 square feet. The other thing we're very excited about, the approximately 2,000 square feet in addition, is it's going to allow us to relocate our MRI unit from 75 Kings Highway. So we'll have everything under one roof. And this is going to be greatly convenient for our patients who will now be cared for at a single location, won't have to run back and forth with the MRI, and obviously is going to improve the timeliness of patient care and treatment. So that's why we're here. The parking is still well beyond capacity. The building requires 140 spaces. We have 169 spaces. You received an email from the engineering department. We've reviewed obviously all aspects of the addition and the site plan, which is substantially unchanged from an engineering standpoint with Ms. Pooley, and she's given you an email on that part. We have a revised site plan here, and we also have Mr. Jim Tate here tonight, who prepared the landscaping plan. I point that out specifically because you'll recall as a condition of approval, you required enhancement to the landscaping plan as part of the original application, and that is shown in this application. The other member of our team who's here tonight is Mr. Joe Mangalello, who designed the building. He's here to answer any questions that you might have. I think you already have for your records, but I'm just going to give you all individual copies. This is a set of the floor plan and the elevations as it relates to the addition. And you'll see the basic use of space on the text desk now. That is my records before. The other thing you'll see in the elevations is the addition area. We're going to add some windows so that back part of the building will become even more beautiful and occupiable, in that it will have a lot more light that will be moving through the area. So that's the application. It's about an additional 3,200 square feet, more or less, to a building that you were good enough to approve in 2013. We're as excited as ever about this project. It's going to allow us to really improve what is already a very high level of patient care for our residents. And we are sure as well that it's going to be a very attractive and important anchor for this important area of town that will continue to benefit all the good things that have been happening there recently, a lot of it, most of it under your watch. So we're very excited about the original approval, and we hope you'll see fit to grant the approval of this small but very important addition in terms of the aspects of service that I referenced before that we'll be able to provide. Be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Coleman.
I was having a little bit of trouble on the first page of the plan identifying where the additional space is. Is that the shaded area to the front of the building?
Joe, do you have a copy of the plan? And the question, Commissioner, you just want to know where the addition is?
I was looking at this plan.
Yes, it's the shaded
This
area.
plan. There's a similarly shaded area at the other end of the building. Is that an addition, or you just ran out of, that's existing? Okay. Thank you.
So it's just tacked onto the back, so that would basically make the the driveway, the pathway a little bit more narrow. Parking spaces were all the same.
Correct,
right?
and obviously, we had this reviewed with the fire marshal, so there's been no change
Right.
in any negative manner to building circulation, ingress and egress.
24-foot
Mm-hmm.
all the way around. Commissioner Corcoran.
Where this addition is right, is the point of the building closest to the street that it's on, right? And is this where the, like dumpsters and so on would be?
No, I think the dumpster location is on the other side, if you look at the site plan.
Where is it?
It's right, Jim, where the dumpster will be? This is Jim Tate, for the record.
Dumpster location is right here, enclosure.
Now,
Commerce Drive, Blackhawk Turnpike.
If you're on Commerce Drive, or say
Commerce Drive.
say you were on a building across the
Yeah.
street, what would you see?
Nothing, it's landscape and it's in a fenced enclosure.
It is.
The dumpster location and screening is unchanged from the 2013 application. And that was done specific to, I think, some dialogue with the commission about location and landscaping and screening of the dumpster.
Are there any other, so this elevation we have of the southern side,
Mm-hmm.
is there anything else in front of the building? For example, I don't see the dumpster enclosure here.
No, the elevation we gave you is just of the addition. And the dumpster,
Off to the side, in the corner, that is a utility corner, there's a generator
Yeah.
here, and there's a pad,
And
utility
it-
pad.
Is the generator screened?
yes.
Yes.
And what is the screening? Is it a block wall or?
No, it's landscaping, we have a hedge of precipio along that side, and then we have some existing material that's there that will stay. This is actually fairly well landscaped right now, so the material will stay there.
And that's, again, as approved.
Big birches that are there that are gonna,
That's as approved in the 2013.
Right.
We haven't changed anything on that. All we're doing here is adding the 3,000 square foot addition.
Commissioner Corcoran, just for your reference, the L1, I think it's the second page of the big plan,
Mm-hmm.
is the landscaping. Shows the
Right.
dumpster enclosure and the generator on the big plans.
Yeah, I remember from the original hearing that I was concerned about the dumpsters on the back, and now I see.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fallon.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard on this item? Going once, going twice? Okay,
Thank you.
very good. Close the public hearing on this item. Next item is 201 Commerce Drive, special exception and special permit for excavation and fill and coastal site plan application of Penske Automotive for an addition to an existing building and the establishment of an automotive service facility in the designed industrial district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is John Fallon. I am here tonight representing the applicant, Penske Automotive. The property, as you know, as the call indicates, is located at 201 Commerce Drive. That is the historic location of the Master Electric Building, and the owner of that property is also here this evening, interested in the application. Few words about Penske Automotive, if I may. As the commission is aware, I think, Penske Automotive is a national leader in the automotive sales and service industry. In Fairfield, it maintains a very prominent presence with numerous facilities, including a Mercedes pre-owned dealership at 80 Commerce Drive, a Mercedes dealership at 165 Commerce Drive, an Audi dealership at 435 Commerce Drive, a Porsche dealership at 475 Commerce Drive, and a state-of-the-art service center at 450 Schofield Avenue, and a collision center at 102 Linwood Avenue. So Penske has been a long-time participant in the revitalization and invigoration of the Commerce Drive area, and this application is certainly consistent with that history. The applications before you are for a special exception to allow the use that I'll describe. For CAM approval, you have a CAM report from Mr. Matt Pop from Environmental Land Solutions. Should you have any questions, Matt is present tonight. And a Section 24 permit for excavation and fill relative to the work that is proposed. Now, our plan, as I lay out in the statement of use, calls for us, and as you can see on the floor plan, utilizing the front portion of the building for accounting, human services, human resources, other administrative functions of the various Penske dealerships that are now scattered about. So this is going to allow us to consolidate all those departments for sake of efficiency in a single location. So we're really relocating certain existing office functions that are scattered around these various sites that I've talked to you about. The rear portion of it, obviously, as you can imagine, the Penske dealerships that I described resale a lot of vehicles. They take a lot of vehicles in trade, they take vehicles that come off lease, et cetera, et cetera. What that rear area depicts is an area for us to process and prepare these pre-owned vehicles for resale. What are we going to do there? Mr. Nolan Redding of Penske is here tonight, and he could certainly answer any questions, but I think it's pretty straightforward. We're going to give those cars a basic mechanical check. We're not going to do any significant repairs there. We'll do minor repair work such as oil changes, tire changes, rear wheel alignment, filter, wiper replacements, get them ready to be resold. There will be no retail customer service at this location. Customers don't bring their cars in, etc. And no vehicles will be brought in by trailer or anything like that. If a vehicle is taken at the Audi dealership in trade, it'll be driven over there, deposited, etc., and then driven back to the Audi dealership. Once those cars are cleaned, detailed, shined, then they're going to be, as I said, taken to the individual dealerships where they will be sold. Now, the application here, a few technical points, obviously subject to the special exception approval we request, is permitted, the reuse is permitted pursuant to section 21.3.1. We did have a code enforcement review, and you have the minutes on that on May 19th, 2015. We've complied with all the requirements of those comments from the code session. We appreciate, and I see Mr. Penzer here tonight, you have a letter from support. We made a presentation to the Economic Development Commission, and we appreciate their support. We have a CAM report, as I said, dated June 1st from Mr. Pop that is self-explanatory. We also have submitted a landscaping plan and lighting plan that Matt prepared, should you have any questions about that. Also here tonight is Mr. Walt Jopes from the Huntington Company. He prepared the site engineering. Obviously, this is a very developed site, but we did make certain enhancements to the site engineering in terms of water runoff control and water quality. You do have an email from Laura Pooley dated June 17th, 2015, confirming her review and findings with regard to our application. So all of our consultants are here tonight. The one thing I wanted to just take a few minutes, because I know you do have other items tonight, but we did ask Frederick P. Clark and Associates to do a traffic evaluation, which has been submitted to you. Mr. Garrett Valella of Frederick P. Clark is here tonight, and I'd just like him briefly to go over the findings and the review that they made. We asked them to look at the volumes associated with our use, and if you look at pages 6 and 7 of the report, you'll see that there's no changes in the service levels, and actually there's a significant reduction of volumes during most peak times, including weekends, from the current use. We also asked them to just review, as we did with the fire marshal, on-site circulation and site ingress and egress. We did that with both the fire marshal and the police department, and we just would like, for a few seconds, if you will, to have Garrett kind of give you an overview, okay? And then we'll all be here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Gary Palella with Frederick P. Clark, for the record. I'm here tonight to give you a brief project description to discuss a little bit the site access considerations and internal circulation for our proposed site, describe the reduction in site traffic generation, touch a little bit upon the intersection site distance, and then conclude with the potential impacts of the project. Brief project description. Obviously, the proposal is to reuse the 18,000 square foot Masters Electrical Supply Company commercial building. You can see the building located here. It's on the southerly side of Commerce Drive. It's located opposite the intersection of Barrett Court, and it's located immediately adjacent to the existing Mercedes-Benz dealership. There's currently 2 existing curb cuts located on the subject property. You can see the ingress on the westerly boundary of the property and the existing egress on the easterly side of the property. Traffic circulation along the site frontage is counterclockwise. Just a little bit about Commerce Drive in the vicinity of the subject property. It provides 2 separate travel lanes, which are separated by a 2-way shared left turn center lane. There are wide striped shoulders in the vicinity of the site. On-street parking isn't permitted on the northerly side of Commerce Drive between the intersections of Brentwood Avenue and Coolidge Street. However, it is permitted on the southerly side, which includes our site frontage. Commerce Drive is almost entirely commercial in character in this area, and our development really fits in as it's located to the west of the existing Mercedes-Benz dealership and to the east of G&J pre-owned vehicles. The posted speed limit on the roadway is 25 miles per hour. So as we mentioned, we conducted some preliminary traffic volumes. Included in our analysis and in our traffic evaluation are traffic volumes for the intersections of Commerce Drive and Brentwood Avenue, as well as Commerce Drive and Coolidge Street. These volumes were obtained from the traffic evaluation prepared for the Land Rover and Jaguar dealership, which is located to the east of our development. The counts were conducted in April of 2014, and what we did is we adjusted them to a 2015 condition, which you can find in the report. The roadway at Commerce Drive has typical commuter peak hours. In the morning it peaks between 7 and 8 a.m. In the afternoon between 4:15 and 5:15 p.m. And then on Saturdays midday between 12:15 and 1:15 in the afternoon. We also took a look at Condat automatic traffic recorder data, which was obtained for Commerce Drive west of Coolidge Street. And the latest data available from the Connecticut Department of Transportation is from 2010, and what it shows is volumes have slightly increased over the last 5 years, which is likely due to the commercialization and revitalization of this corridor. The last thing we collected as part of our existing conditions analyses was accident data for the latest 3-year period available from the Fairfield Police Department. And what it shows is between the intersections of Brentwood Avenue and Coolidge Street, there was 1 recorded accident during that 3-year period, which was from 2011 to 2013. That 1 accident occurred during icy weather and snowy weather. Next, let's move on to the site access considerations. The proposal is to remove the existing landscaping along the easterly side of the commercial building and the easterly property line. You can see it a little bit better in this diagram. So what we're proposing to do is remove the landscaping that was formerly on the easterly side of the building and replace that with a shared 1-way northbound traffic lane between the existing car dealership and the proposed service center. Traffic will not be able to, once it travels northbound, re-enter the 201 Commerce Drive property, and it will be forced to egress on the existing car dealership. This will allow almost all the service vehicle and employee traffic to exit via the existing dealership property. To accommodate this, the existing traffic flow patterns within the existing car dealership surface frontage lot are going to be reversed.
The existing what?
The existing lot for the Mercedes-Benz car dealership, the traffic flow is going to be reversed. Instead of this being an ingress, this will be an egress drive only to remove vehicle conflict within the parking lot, and this will become an ingress drive. To accommodate this, we're going to redefine the layout of the angled parking spaces. However, we're not going to eliminate any parking spaces along the frontage of the existing car dealership.
So, can I stop you there for a second?
Yes.
So, originally, the dealership was approved with that driveway being an ingress to circulate to the front of the building, and the parking spaces on the dealership lot are striped at an angle, so, to allow a car to sort of come and pull in. Now the cars are going to be pulling in on the other side, and they're going to enter that parking lot in the front of the building through the smaller opening, is that right?
Correct, we'll be entering through the easterly access drive on the existing car dealership.
So the angled parking spaces are facing in the wrong direction now.
Correct, and we are going to revise that layout. We're going to maintain the same number of spaces, however, we're going to angle the parking spaces so that vehicles can access through the easterly drive and then enter the parking spaces.
This was actually, not to interrupt Garrett or the question, but this was actually something that came up by way of a suggestion
Yeah.
from the engineering department during code.
Well, I saw Ms. Pooley's notes in the email where she suggests that there's now an easement from the adjoining property that allows the egress lane to traverse across the Car Uni property, which is great, but that results in a change in the previously approved plan for the Uni property, which I'm not sure, I'm just, sort of looking at it for the first time here, and I don't understand how that relates.
Well, Walter wants to make, Mr. Jobst wants to make a comment. Mr. Jobst wants to make a comment, and then I'll directly comment to that as well.
For the record, Walter Jobst, professional engineer, land surveyor with the Huntington Company. These spaces, as striped, can be accessed with our new entrance here around the building, coming in between the two buildings, our new
Well, I realize
exit drive, and then park in here.
But you're not going to have every customer that enters the car dealership circumnavigate the entire building and go around through the back lot merely to find a parking space in front of the building, are you?
Or
Hold on. Are you? Really?
that is one option that we have. We can restripe these, as Garrett said, to accommodate entrance to this small driveway here to the east.
How wide is
Parking
that?
there. And it's basically a matter of restriping.
That was our intention, and that's what I was going to say that in my summary remarks, that, you could make a condition of approval, since it's common ownership, that we would restripe those spaces and submit a revised plan to your staff, to your review and satisfaction, because that was our intention. And we're basically just trying to follow up on what we thought was a good idea that emanated from the engineering
Yeah.
department. I understand.
Well, don't get me wrong, and I'm sorry to interrupt, because I'm not suggesting that it's not feasible, or and frankly, it's probably a wise idea to have shared, drive and facilities, but,
We can reconfigure, and you can make it a condition of approval, these spaces, because I understand your point, but we've looked at that, and it's easy, that's an easy thing for us to do if you want to do that.
well, because one of the things that, we're responsible for doing is approving the, parking layout and the flow and everything, and so when the Unicar, the Car Uni, site was approved.
Right.
It was approved for specific, site layout, site plan, traffic flow, et cetera. And now, suddenly, through this application, we're saying that's now going to change. But we don't have that, we're not seeing how that's going to change.
We're not going to make any substantive change to your site plan approval on this site. The same number of parking spaces will remain. We're improving circulation in accordance with the engineering department comment. The only thing that's changing, if you wanted to change, is the restriping of these spaces here, which we could easily do.
Were there any issues in the Car Uni application as to sight lines for ingress and egress from those two different driveways?
No.
I'm asking because I don't know.
No, the answer is...
Because it's not in front of me, because I don't, you know what I'm saying? So I'm having a little trouble not having that information before me.
We won't be changing either of these driveways or either of the sight lines for these driveways. And these driveways were all approved fairly recently as part of the state and local review for the Commerce Drive Improvement Program, which covered these properties.
That's
So
great.
I think you can feel comfortable with the sight lines.
Well, they were approved, one as an ingress and
Right.
one as an egress, and so the sight lines are going to be different. Not, the lines themselves are not going to be different, but the requirements for one as an enter and the other as an exit, it's just, that's all I'm trying to say.
I don't think there'll be any substantive changes in the sightline.
All right.
I do agree with you that if you felt it would be better, we could certainly, as we were kind of planning on doing anyway, restrict.
I just, and this is off the cuff, but it makes no sense to me to have a retail customer circumnavigate the entire building to drive all the way around to pull into the angled spot that way.
Right, so, and we could solve that by restriping those spaces, which was our intention, and what we'd suggest as a condition of approval. Thank you. Gary?
And so then, just one more question about that, the easement? So there's a formal easement now in
That
place?
should be, I spoke to, that should be a condition of approval, as you often do when we do the reciprocal, access easements. So that, and we would submit that to staff, as we always do, we've done that from the Blackbird Turnpike.
Is there any, so this is not really like a shared parking facility?
No, this is an easement
Yeah.
that would allow the access as described by Gary.
Right.
But it's similar, the easement would be similar to the type that you've conditioned before when you are doing, not so much joint parking, but where you're connecting
Yeah.
parking lots on Blackbird Turnpike. Indeed, your regulations speak to that.
And we would want, or suggest, obviously, a condition of approval on that as well. And we'd submit the easement.
Does it make sense to have that island and have them so separate and not make that a sort of a common entry-exit point for the two buildings and the parking lots?
I defer to Garrett on that, but I think it does make sense, but if you'd want to address that.
Yeah, I might touch upon the actual location of the Egos Drive and later on in the presentation, if that's all right.
I'm sorry, are you going to comment on that later?
Actually, since a significant amount of the traffic will be leaving through the existing car dealership, you're actually increasing the sight lines for egress for the majority of the vehicles leaving the site by having egress this drive as opposed to egressing from the 201 Commerce Drive.
Okay, I mean, I understand that. I was asking whether it made sense from a traffic and flow perspective to eliminate that separation there, because...
What we were worried about was if we did that, we'd increase the number of conflict points along the site frontage, and it would be actually more hazardous for vehicles. So that's why this separation.
Are the vehicles that are being serviced in the new building, the building subject to the application, are those vehicles ever brought to the adjacent building? Do they ever, cross-pollinate?
Well, all service vehicles will actually arrive from the existing car dealership through the easement, and then they'll return to the existing car dealership as well.
The answer to that is affirmative, Mr. Chairman, because we will utilize, the properties are connected in the back, so we'll take advantage of that, so that if there's a vehicle at the dealership that's going to go over for, rehabbing for resale, your question is correct.
It's not going to go out onto Commerce and then come all the way back.
It'll go right over.
So there's, these two asphalt parking lots are going to be unified.
Correct.
Okay.
But, yes, the answer to that's unequivocally yes. What we're trying to do is build upon engineering suggestion to unify the circulation system on both properties.
Yeah,
Which
well,
I
I
thought
mean-
was a good idea.
Otherwise you had a one-way street all the way 12 foot wide,
Correct.
where you'd have to be honking horns and have mirrors.
But
and
I
all
think
that.
your question is a very good one in that we should highlight the fact that this is all integrated.
It's common,
Correct,
it's common.
correct. And the easement will speak to that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any questions on this? Commissioner Corcoran?
How many employees are we looking at
We have a total of approximately 50 to 60 employees.
in this building?
Correct.
And how does the parking work out for them?
We have a total of 65 spaces. We have a total of 66 spaces
On this same property?
on the subject property.
Now, some of those spaces in the back are doubled up. I mean, they look like inventory storage.
Their spaces are as shown on, the plan. They are as shown on the plan. Yes. But they'll all be used, there's no retail or customer service associated with this building. They'll all be employees who'll be coming in for the day and leaving.
So there are no retail, there's no retail aspect to the
No
business.
customers will come here at any time.
Purely to service the other
The only people who are
dealerships.
going to come here on a daily basis are the employees to these consolidated departments, and they'll be working, as the statement of use says, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
That's why there's a decrease in traffic on the weekend.
Correct. And the only increase in traffic is during the morning piece. I think it's 18 vehicles.
18 vehicle shipments.
How many spaces did you say were here?
66.
Boy, I don't see 66.
We can count them, but there are 66 spaces.
No, I didn't count. Yeah, might be, we'll count them another time. Yeah. So,
Okay.
66.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to take a little...
No, I think we're ready to
tangent
answer
there.
any questions that you might have. I'm sure you have the full report. Garrett summarized it, I think, very well. If you have questions, we're pleased to answer them.
Anyone else? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're finished?
Yeah, I have a few summary comments to make, if you want me to do that now.
It's up to you, I didn't know if...
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
seen you were
sorry.
talking to
I just
Mr.
did a
Jones,
ring,
and,
whatever.
I didn't know if you planned to call anyone else to talk,
No,
or...
we're here, we have again, by way of summary, Mr. Jobs is here. If you have any questions, any further questions of Garrett, Matt Pop is here with regard to the landscaping and lighting plan. Mr. Redding is here if you have any operational comments. Just to reiterate, we would expect and welcome a condition of approval with regard to the submission of the appropriate easement that would be reviewed by you and staff as you see fit to ensure that that will have to be recorded as part of the special exception approval. We're also very comfortable with the condition of approval. We were planning on doing it anyway, of realigning these spaces to make them more convenient for accessibility.
Do we need, is there, I mean, I know it's a common applicant, or that it's common ownership, but do we need some sort of, letter, say, something from the property owner?
From the entity?
Yeah, from, that they're in agreement with what is gonna happen now on another parcel?
Obviously, on the subject parcel, the property owner is here this evening. He's well aware, he can speak to that,
So that's the applicant's
That's the
parcel.
applicant. As far as this goes, I can certainly provide to the staff before your deliberative session, a letter from the legal entity that owns this property.
Are they different?
I think there probably are different, yeah, I think they're different entities, yes.
So it's not, that's why,
Yeah.
I'm conceptualizing it's common ownership, but it's a different legal entity. We're making a condition of approval to make changes on another parcel.
Yeah, I think,
And I'm not saying we can't do it, we need to do it correctly.
I agree, and I think, if the only changes to the site plan are this, restriping of those spaces, that's de minimis. But if the commission wants, I can submit to staff an appropriate letter from this entity indicating their knowledge of the application and their approval of what we're proposing, including the restriping of the spaces.
Right, I mean, and not to be argumentative, it's not just restriping of the spaces, because the circulation is gonna change too,
Well, I would include that in the letter, obviously. And yes, I'd include that in the letter.
right?
Yeah.
And I think, do we need to have a revised site plan that would need to be submitted and approved for that separate parcel?
Condition of approval, as you have passed, would require a live plan to be submitted.
For that other parcel?
Sure.
Alternatively, they could submit the provision showing the striping attached to the letter.
Right, right.
That might be the easiest, I think. If we submitted this, but with the striping revised, and then a letter from this entity confirming, one, their knowledge, acquiescence, and consent to a
The
condition of
easement.
striping and the easement.
You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
you got a few moving parts here.
Yeah, no, that we can certainly do.
Commissioner Barrett.
No, I'd agree. I think it would be good to just hear from the other end, just that they're in concurrence with the application.
That's fine.
We've had cases where neighbors have agreed
Yeah.
to something, and then later on, there was a fence between them, and
Yeah.
what we agreed
And-
to could no longer be built.
And I think the point is absolutely well taken. The good news is this is one of those situations where I said at the beginning where it's all these entities are,
Yeah,
common in
and
the sense of
that's
the
all
people.
well and good.
Right.
And that's
But
all well and good.
you
but
should have a letter.
Including the fact that the cars are gonna be driving across the property line in the back. Now, you got an easement for that one strip in between the things there, right?
Mhm.
But, you know, it's a separate legal entity.
Yeah.
What happens if they sold one off? And
Well, the
that-
easement will speak to
The whole thing, ingress,
The whole thing.
on that, in that direction as well, not
Right.
just for ingress and egress, but the easement will also say for the purpose, okay, all right, okay.
But you should still have the letter.
Yeah, well,
And that's-
exactly.
That's easy for me to do before
Mhm.
your next session. Not easy, but I can.
Hmm? But then they sell one entity off, and then the other guy comes back. to
See,
it,
just so you know,
and all of a sudden, now
the-
you got a conflict.
The easement that will be documented and referenced by this map is this hatched area.
Yeah,
So
I'm
it's the
looking at it.
whole, it's not just here, it's all the way back. But yes, we'd be happy to supply that confirmatory letter.
And it goes both ways, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's a,
absolutely.
okay, all right, very good.
So that's really it. We're excited about this. We're comfortable, obviously, with the conditions of approval and the submission of that letter. Penske Automotive, as I said at the beginning, big contributor to Fairfield in this part of town. We're very excited about this present application. It's further evidence, I think, of Penske's ongoing commitment to the town of Fairfield and its economic vitality. And we'll be pleased to answer any other questions you might have, and hope you'll favorably consider the application.
Anyone else have any more questions? Is there any member of the public who wishes to be heard on this application? No? Going once, going twice? All right. Close the public hearing on this item. Quite a few moving parts. All right. Next item is, I need my glasses. 665, 711 Commerce Drive, special permit and request for a transit-oriented development park designation application of Scala Partners LLC and Abbey Road Ventures LLC for a mixed-use commercial and residential building in the designed commercial and Commerce Drive districts.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, my name is Bill Fitzpatrick. I'm an attorney in Fairfield with the law firm of Fitzpatrick, Frey, and Bologna. We have offices at 1735 Post Road. I'm here this evening representing Scala Partners LLC and Abbey Road Ventures LLC. With me tonight are Ari and Nico Kudavides from Scala Partners and Ross Ogden and Martini from Abbey Road. Abbey Road is the owner of the two office building properties to the west, namely 1375 Kings Highway, four-story building at the corner of Commerce and Kings Highway, and 777 Commerce Drive, the two-story building directly to the west. The property which is the subject of this application is the former Fitness Edge property, located at the southwest quadrant of the intersection of Commerce Drive and Black Rock Turnpike. This property, known as 665 and 711 Commerce Drive, contains 2.5 acres and has been rezoned by your commission as Commerce Drive Area Designed District. The P&Z has also, as the result of its Commerce Drive planning study, created an overlay zoning classification known as the Transit-Oriented Development Park. In fact, this parcel of land was specifically identified, along with other parcels, as a candidate for TODP designation. My clients have followed the lead of the commission in developing the TODP and have designed a proposal in full accord with the TODP objectives. The transit-oriented development park purpose and relevant part is, quote, "to enable the development of a transit-supportive, mixed-use neighborhood within walking distance of commuter rail transit of a scale and design that is appropriate to the existing neighborhood context and to the character of the town," end quote. That is, we submit precisely the application before the commission tonight. A mixed-use building with a base floor of retail and office uses and 4th floor of residential apartments. The design has wrapped the corner of Commerce Drive and Black Rock Turnpike, reduces the curb cuts from 3 curb cuts to 1 curb cut, and provides the opportunity to create a landscape terrace for the building residents to the rear with covered parking below. The property is certainly within walking distance of commuter transit, being 3/10 of a mile from the southbound station and 4/10 of a mile to the northbound station. The presentation the commission will hear tonight will include George Andrews from Lorera Engineering, Tim Gooding from Gooding Architecture LLC, Eric Rains from Eric Rains Landscape Architects LLC, and Garrett Balella, pinch hitting for Mike Galante from Frederick B. Clark Associates. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Mr. George Andrews, a professional engineer and licensed environmental professional with Lorero Engineering Associates of Plainville, Connecticut. George. Can we turn down the lights for the projector, please? Thank you.
Thank goodness I brought my own light. I don't think it's tied in. My name is George Andrews. I'm with Lorero Engineering Associates. We're out of Plainville, Connecticut. I'm a licensed environmental professional and a professional engineer. Lorero was retained by Scala Partners and given the responsibility of basically providing the survey, the site, and civil engineering. And what I thought I would start with tonight is run through the existing conditions and then transition into the proposed conditions. So the project is located at the corner of Commerce Drive and Black Rock Turnpike. If you go to the next slide, Ari. Right there. Commerce Drive right through here, Black Rock Turnpike, just to give you your bearings. The site consists of 2 separate parcels which are proposed to be merged. We have a larger parcel right here which will be merged with the smaller parcel that's located right here. The larger of the 2 parcels, 665 Commerce Drive, is 1.99 acres, and that has a 23,000 square foot brick building that was built in 1940. Of course, that's located right there. 711, which is a smaller parcel, 711 Commerce Drive, is 0.52 acres, and that has a 6,900 square foot brick structure, once again built in 1940.
total of the merged parcels would be 2.51 acres. So the project proposal is on the entirety of the 2.51 acres. The access, existing access, is through 3 curb cuts. We have one that's located right here, we have a second that's located here, and a third located right here. And as you'll hear in my presentation, we'll be reducing that to 1 curb cut with the proposal. The zoning of the site, it's designed commercial district is the underlying zone. The project has been designed to qualify under the overlying zone of transit-oriented development park. The existing utilities, Commerce Drive is well stocked with utilities. We have sewer, water, and gas that presently serve these 2 structures, all from Commerce Drive. We have overhead power, which is provided once again on Commerce Drive. Stormwater of the existing site is primarily handled by upfront discharge to Commerce Drive up here, and I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to handle that in the future development. And the rest of the site is essentially a lower grade, and it's fully contained. And it consists, stormwater system consists of a variety of different dry wells that are located back here. Those dry wells were installed circa 1950 and continue to function appropriately to this day. We're proposing to demolish both of the structures. The buildings have been assessed for asbestos-containing materials and hazardous building materials. The proposal, as I say, would raise both of the buildings, utilities would be disconnected, and the buried structures that I defined toward the rear would actually be abandoned in place and backfilled with suitable material that could facilitate the installation of future drainage systems. I'd like to transition into the proposed development. If we can go to the site plan. We're proposing a new apartment structure with an amenity terrace and parking thereunder. I just want to explain our site plan. It's a little confusing. If you look at the full drawing set, of course, the architectural drawings define the location of the terrace, which is right here. And that becomes part of the building at the upper level. The site plan, of course, my objective is to demonstrate parking and site amenities to you, so I'm not showing the terrace. So the terrace would overlie this portion of the parking, and that'll be detailed further on. There's a zoning compliance table that's been prepared on the site plan, and that demonstrates compliance with all of the bulk zoning requirements that the town has, such as setbacks, building coverage, and density, etc. The parking layout that we're providing meets the town dimensional requirements. We've provided an access, 1 point of access, as I mentioned right here, and the way we've laid the parking out and the islands out within this area, we're able to run an SU, single unit 30 truck, which would be similar to a garbage truck or delivery truck. We're able to actually run through the site, make the U-turn, and then exit without 3-point turns. So it's been some strategy essentially in the layout of the parking throughout this area. We've provided a single loading space, which is located right here, which would also facilitate emergency access parking. And we have an access sidewalk I want to call attention to that runs down the side of the building right here. And please, once again, remember back, we have a terrace that's located here. There's a stairway that goes down, so that sidewalk right there is part of the site proper. It's not intended to be part of a public sidewalk associated with Black Rock. If we can transition to the grading plan, please, Ari. Okay, the site grading, as I mentioned, the back of the site was relatively low, and that's, of course, where the stormwater management systems were installed. We're proposing to modify the site grading a little bit, and we're looking to provide a relatively flat pallet toward the front of the parcel. We want the front of the parcel to stand slightly higher than Commerce Drive, understanding that Black Rock transitions to a higher grade as, of course, you run further to the south. So we've graded the parking lot with minimum grades of 1%, typically around 2% to accommodate drainage. And we've provided the stormwater systems down in this area, a separate system in this area, and a separate system right here. which I'll discuss in a little bit more detail. We've implemented low-impact stormwater management. We're using primary treatment processes, including porous pavement. The porous pavement that I've run includes this parking area, right through here, right up through the terrace. So all of that will be porous pavement. The porous pavement is going to be constructed with a 4-inch pavement surface, which is popcorn pavement, fully pervious, and then it's going to have an 18-inch crushed stone reservoir underneath it. And what that will facilitate is infiltration of the storm water directly and recharge of the groundwater within that area. The terrace and part of the rooftop is going to be connected to a separate system which is going to be located right in here. And that system is going to include infiltration facility which is, consists of a variety of different rows of galley-like materials, and that's designed by a company called StormTech. And that's provided with one particular row that's wrapped completely in a filter fabric that provides treatment prior to discharge. So prior to infiltration, we'll get treatment in that particular row. The system that's located toward the front of the structure, right through here, is provided with a detention facility, and we're connecting that stormwater system to the roadway system. There's an existing catch basin right here. So that system will provide full detention, and we've actually reduced the overall runoff to Commerce Drive through that detention structure. I'd like to talk a little bit about the utilities, if you can transition, Ari, please. Utilities are primarily going to be provided along Black Rock. That's a little transition from the existing conditions, which are primarily provided on Commerce. So we're going to provide the sewage connection is going to be provided along Commerce. We have been in touch with the Water Pollution Control Authority. We have presented to the Water Pollution Control Authority, and we're currently working on some monitoring that we'll be providing to them for their review and approval. The water system, we're going to connect to the Black Rock water system, and we'll have two connections. One will be for fire protection. These are the two lines right here. And the second will be for domestic service. So there'll be two separate lines. We do have a hydrant test scheduled for this hydrant right here with the water company, and we'll be documenting the adequacy of capacity in that roadway. However, based on conversations that we have had with Aquarian Water, the anticipation is that we have certainly plenty of capacity in that area. But this determination and the testing will provide some information with regard to how to design the internal sprinkler system. Power and communications will be provided by Black Rock. We have had conversations with United Illuminating. We will have a generator on the site, and that will be for life safety services. Last but not least is our gas. Our gas will similarly be provided by connection on Black Rock Turnpike. Okay, I'd like to just give a highlight on our site lighting. I'm sorry, this is the summary of the stormwater management system. As I mentioned, I went through some of the details earlier, and this slide presents the summary of the reduction in stormwater runoff. So we're containing all the stormwater to the rear on the site. We're going to infiltrate all of that. That's been reviewed and endorsed by the town's engineering department. And the front system will actually show a reduction in total stormwater discharge to Commerce Drive. Okay, I'd like to just talk a little bit about site lighting. Eric Raines will be talking about that in a little bit more detail. He's our landscape architect. Lorero provided the photometric plan, so we designed the photometrics associated with the lighting system. We did design it with LED lights throughout the entirety of the parking and frontal area, and they are all full cutoff fixtures. So we have a variety of fixtures that are located along here that Eric will talk about in a little bit more detail. He'll show you cuts of those fixtures. And then we have separate shoebox fixtures that are located throughout the parking area. And then we have some wall mount fixtures which are located along this sidewalk over here. And the illuminance schedule that we provided in our plan meets and/or exceeds the requirements that the town has for illuminance for such a site. Light trespass, as you'll see in the photometric plan, is absolute minimal and meets the standard that the town has for light trespass at the property boundary. Last but not least, I'll just briefly talk about the soil erosion and sedimentation control, as it is fairly simple on this site. Since the site is essentially self-contained, we will have one point of access. That point of access will be provided with anti-tracking pad. Primary access will be through this roadway. Each one of the basins and structures along the front as well as in the back will certainly be protected. Silt fence will really essentially be at a minimum. We will have a silt fence running along the front during temporary construction until such time as the concrete is established there. Final construction, and most important, is going to be sequencing final construction of the porous pavement with the rest of the site. As you can imagine, we can't afford to track silt and sediment onto the porous pavement, as it would plug that pavement. So critical to this is going to be the construction of all of that porous pavement, keeping that clean throughout the construction period, which we've made provisions within our plan and submitted that plan to you. So with that said, that concludes my presentation. I'd like to hand the table back to Bill, and I'll certainly be available for any questions that you have.
Thank you, George. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tim Gooding, the principal of Gooding Architecture LLC of Stamford. Thank you, George.
Absolutely. Thank you. There's that. Here's the pointer.
Okay.
Buttons right there.
Great.
Got it?
Yep. Good evening. Before we developed the concept for the project, we walked the surrounding neighborhood and reviewed what is there. As you know, this is a mixed-use, light industrial area with office buildings, strip shopping centers, manufacturing facilities such as Bigelow, and the new train station. The existing neighborhood architectural styles are modern to industrial. In our design, we responded to this context by doing a contemporary design that complements the neighborhood, as well as moving it in a more pedestrian-friendly direction. The building creates a strong retail street presence that invites the public in. This is achieved by having 300 feet of glazed retail storefronts and a wide landscape sidewalk. So the entire length of Commerce here in the corner is all retail with the landscape sidewalk in front of it. Following recognized urban planning precepts, the building aligns with the street, which defines public space. In plan, the building is articulated with two 5-foot jogs on Commerce and 12-inch deep bay elements across the facade. So the jogs are these and these. They're 5 foot deep, as I said, and then we have these varying bay elements on the retail as well as on the upper part of the building. This conforms to the zoning requirement for limiting the length of flat continuous facades. A 45-degree turn at the corner with a large bay element there defines and enhances the intersection. This creates a small plaza at the corner. This architectural design, where the building turns a corner, creates a sense of place at this significant intersection. On the south side of the building, where the landscape terrace is, we have an arcade which provides covered access to the stores and leads you to the residential lobby. It's a little difficult to see here, but this is a covered arcade with the rear entrances to the stores and lobby there at the end. We have located the residential lobby adjacent to the parking. Regarding the design of the facades, the building style is a contemporary design, but it also includes traditional materials and fenestration. The elevations are articulated and varied with bay elements that are of different heights and colors, these bays here. The palette of materials we are using is primarily brick in 2 colors and smooth panels in 2 colors as well. This provides a variety of textures and tones. The windows are aluminum with subtly different mullion patterns and clear glazing. The mullion patterns are actually different on the bays as opposed to the field of brick. The smooth panel bays extend up above the main roof line, which breaks up the building profile and provides visual interest. So these bays extend up all along Commerce, so you don't have this long cornice that is flat. On the corner on the other side, at the intersection, the louvered aluminum sunshades add shadows and depth to the facade. These are the sunshades here. On the building planning, the ground floor is primarily retail, plus the residential lobby and support spaces. So this is all retail here, and this is the residential lobby, and these are support spaces for both commercial and residential. There are covered commercial parking spaces over here, and the surface parking here for the residential. The residential upper floors are a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. These all have ample kitchens with high-end finishes. Each unit has its own laundry. At the second floor, the residents will have use of a club room for social activities, a fitness center, and access to a large landscape terrace with a pool. So this is the fitness, this is the club room, and the opening out directly to the terrace area and the pool over here. And there's some lawn areas and a bocce, and Eric will get into the details. And so in conclusion, we conform to the zoning requirements for density, height, and coverage found in the regulations. We have endeavored to create a visually rich and appropriate addition to the neighborhood. Thank you. Get back to Bill. Need a light? Absolutely.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. Chairman, I'd now like to introduce Mr. Eric Raines of Eric Raines Landscape Architects of South Norwalk. Eric.
Thank you.
Good evening. Eric Raines, as Bill had mentioned. I think what we'll do best is, the best way to approach this is to walk the sort of the perimeter of the site, and we'll discuss the components that are in each of the areas that we'll highlight. So starting on the west here, between our proposed parking and Commerce Drive, we have a row of canopy trees, which is part of the requirements within the regulations to provide a separation from parked areas and the public right-of-way. Those canopy trees are in line with an evergreen hedge that is that darker shape, that darker space that's in between each one. Those trees on the street side are then, the next element is the public sidewalk itself, and then the outer edge of it, which is a continuation of this green line, is a lawn shelf that originates here and goes the length of the property. So going the opposite direction, we have the curb, the lawn shelf, the public sidewalk, then the buffer elements, which are the evergreen shrubs and the canopy trees. The second zone is this longer zone here that Tim had mentioned, is the base of the building where the retail and commercial spaces are. That zone, in addition to the lawn shelf and the public sidewalk, which are continuations from what began here, we've introduced a brick edge detail so that these spaces are starting to be defined a little further with the accent of that brick and repeating some of the building materials. We also used a brick edge detail around the perimeter of the base of the building. So there's a band that would happen, that occurs around the perimeter of the building, again, just to help that transition from the building facade down and onto the site. In this vicinity across the face of the building, you'll see these planting openings that are created within the sidewalk. Those have canopy trees on each end of it, the longer ones. The shorter one here is a single tree, and then at the ground level below that are shrubs and ground cover. In between these trees, you'll see these small dots. Those are street lights that are consistent with the historic light that's used in Fairfield, and we'll have a cut of that in a moment. But those play in the rhythm of the trees that we've proposed for along Commerce Drive. In addition to those elements, we've used benches. So each of these double tree islands has a bench in them, and then at each end of the long run of the double trees, there's a bike rack here and a bike rack there. So again, trying to bring into that portion of the site where the most foot traffic would be coming and going from the building, would be to add all the elements that would make their trip here convenient. This edge is a little bit different in that the grade, as you know, starts to climb from the intersection as you're on Black Rock Turnpike. There is no sidewalk along the edge here, but we do have a lawn shelf that's at the top of a slope that, much like today, slopes down toward the site. So all of this planting that is proposed in here is a mixture of canopy trees and shrubs that would be planted on the slope that leads down toward the site. This edge is a different condition as well, in that it's along the drive for Bigelow. They have, as you can see in this image, they have canopy trees on their property already, and then we would be introducing new additional canopy trees on our property. From there, the next zone is probably best to discuss the interior of the site at grade. You'll see the parking lot is flanked here with canopy trees again. The islands that are created in the parking lot have those trees as well. We have trees along the colonnade that Tim had mentioned, and then in this island as well, we have canopy trees there. From a lighting perspective, I'll show you a cut of this fixture, but this is more of a, as George described it, as a shoebox kind of fixture that's in here and here, and I'll show you that cut sheet. And then this area is the amenity terrace that we've been speaking about. And as Tim mentioned, there's the club room and a fitness room here. The club room portion of the interior amenity connects to an exterior terrace there are a couple of awnings here for, just to be over that would be over the doorways. The first element in here would be a fire pit for people to pull chairs up to and around. We have barbecue grills over here, and that sort of that space is then defined with ornamental kinds of trees that would have clear multi-trunk kinds of structure, so you can see through it. But still, it would provide enough definition so that this begins to read as its own space. We'll vary the paving a bit, as you see in these lighter stripes, just to help ease the expanse of paving that we would have in there. There would be furniture in here for different kinds of uses. Maybe there's some dining tables and some lounge furniture, and then furniture that would be suitable around the fireplace. So then as you move from that area into this, which connects sort of to the hallway between the fitness room and the club room, this we would envision, like say there's an event in the club room that's happening here, it would still allow other residents to come through and use the space, so it's not completely cut off. They can access the pool through the pool gate here, which gets them onto the pool deck. We have cabanas that are on this end of the pool to provide shade and some architectural interest around the pool. And then outside that is this lawn panel that flanks the length of both of those spaces, which is flexible space for, that residents can use for frisbee or croquet or however, it's unprogrammed. Along this edge would be where we have a bocce court proposed, with room around it for furniture for people to observe. And then these lines over top here are string lights that would enable the bocce area to be used into the evening. And then this zone is a smaller lawn area that would be auxiliary to the uses that are happening in the bocce area. From there, you go back to the building perimeter, which is separated by a hedge. So that when you're in this, if people are using this space, the residents have some separation between the two uses. So if you'll go to the next slide. This is a computer rendering of the pool area. The cabanas I mentioned, the ornamental trees that separate that fire pit area, the lawn panel, the hedge that separates the two uses, bocce with string lights, and then that smaller lawn area. And then these are the two fixtures. This is the fixture that is used throughout, particularly on the Post Road in town, and it would be used on the Commerce Drive length of the property. Interior to the property is this fixture, as George had mentioned. They're both full cutoff fixtures, and aside from this would be the string lights that you saw in the rendering just prior. So I'll be available as well for questions later, unless you have some now. Otherwise, it's back to Bill.
Thank you, Eric. Mr. Chairman, I'd now like to introduce Mr. Garrett Bilella of Frederick B. Clark Associates. Garrett is substituting for Michael Galante, who is unavailable. Garrett.
Garrett Bilella with Frederick B. Clark Associates, who conducted the traffic access and impact study to provide the town of Fairfield with a detailed analysis to determine the potential impacts of the multi-use development. I just want to give you a brief project overview. The development is proposed on a parcel of land with a currently vacant building. The proposal is for approximately 18,000 square feet of gross commercial area and 101 apartment units, and the site currently provides 3 access drives along its northerly property boundary. In addition to the site access drives, we have expanded the study area to include the adjacent signalized intersections to both the east and west. Included in the analysis are the intersections of Commerce Drive and Black Rock Turnpike, as well as Commerce Drive and Kings Highway East. Commerce Drive in the vicinity of the site provides 2 travel lanes, which are separated by a 2-way left turn center lane. The speed limit is 25 miles per hour. There are wide paved shoulders on both sides of the roadway. As part of the process of modeling baseline traffic volumes within the study area, we conducted manual traffic turning movement counts specifically for this application. The counts were conducted on Thursday, April 23rd during the weekday morning and weekday afternoon, as well as Saturday, April 25th. The counts were conducted while schools were open and during good weather conditions. The peak hours were identified to be during the weekday morning between 7:15 and 8:15 a.m., during the weekday afternoon between 5 and 6 p.m., and on Saturday from 11:45 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. These were the hours that were used as a baseline for our traffic analysis. The table that you see before you provides a summary of the 2-way traffic volumes recorded for each segment of the roadway. Next slide, please. Figure 4 provides the 2015 existing traffic volumes by movement and approach to each of the study area intersections during the weekday afternoon peak hour. Also, as part of our inventory steps of data collection, automatic traffic recorder data was collected from the Connecticut Department of Transportation for 3 different locations within the study area. What the data shows, it's from 2010, is that there's been a general decrease in traffic volumes within this area from 2010 to 2015, and that's just an example of one of the traffic recorders that we pulled. To develop the 2017 no-build base condition, it was necessary to apply an annual growth rate of 2%, which should be considered very conservative to the 2015 existing traffic volumes. In addition, from recent and past conversations with the Fairfield Town Planning Department, it was determined that traffic related to several other developments located in the immediate vicinity should be added to the network. We include traffic related to the New Country Lexus Service Center expansion, which is located to the northwest of the site, the medical building located across the street, the Bright Beginnings Child Care, which is located in the former Fairfield Lighting Building, and also traffic related to the proposed Land Rover and Jaguar dealership at 1 Commerce Drive. To be conservative, we also included Fairfield Metro Center residential development traffic, although that's likely not likely to be built within this time frame. Moving on, after we've established the no-build traffic volumes, we have to determine the site traffic generation by the proposed multi-use development. We estimated 18,000 square feet of commercial space as retail traffic, since retail tends to generate the most traffic and is therefore more conservative. We also generated traffic for 101 residential apartment units. Based on the ITE trip generation manual, We determined that there'd be approximately 70 vehicle trip ends during the weekday morning, 131 during the weekday afternoon, and 141 during the Saturday midday peak hour. However, due to the nature of the multi-use development, an internal capture rate of 10% was applied to trips generated by the proposed retail and residential land uses. What the internal capture rate does is it accounts for trips between the retail and residential land uses that won't use the external street network, and that will be contained within the site. We also applied a pass-by credit of 20%, which is standard by CONDOT guidelines. The pass-by credit accounts for individuals already traveling on Commerce Drive that would stop at the retail development on their way, for example, to or from the metro station to the southwest. After accounting for the internal capture and pass-by trips, the total development is estimated to generate only 60 vehicle trip ends during the weekday morning peak hour, 106 during the weekday afternoon, and 111 primary and new vehicle trip ends during the Saturday midday peak hour. This analysis is even more conservative in the sense that it does not apply a transit credit or assume any residential tenants will use the nearby train station, which would further reduce site traffic generation estimates. Moving on to the distribution, first I'd just like to talk a little bit about the site access. Of the 3 existing curb cuts and access drives to Commerce Drive, we will only utilize the center access drive, which is located opposite 6A2 Commerce Drive. From a safety standpoint, this is significant as eliminating 2 access drives will greatly reduce the number of conflict points between merging and diverging traffic on Commerce Drive. Based on the nature of the proposed development, the proposed access plan, and existing traffic volumes on nearby roadways, we established this distribution that you see in front of you. The distribution assumes that approximately 50% of site traffic will originate on Kings Highway to the southwest, 25% will come from the north and depart to the north on Black Rock Turnpike, approximately 15% will arrive and depart from Commerce Drive to the east, and 10% will arrive from the south on Black Rock Turnpike. The next figure just shows the assignment of the site traffic for the weekday afternoon peak hour. We take the assignment of site traffic added to the no-build traffic volumes to determine the build traffic volumes. A comparison between the 2017 no-build and build conditions indicates that there is no significant impact to the overall operation or operation of any lane groups or approaches. And if you can go to the next slide, please. And what this means is that there's no change in the level of service or letter grade of any of the lane groups or approaches to the intersections or the overall operation. The maximum project delay associated with this development will be 3.7 seconds to any lane group or approach. Furthermore, the critical movements from the site access drive will operate at level of service B during all peak hours. Moving on next to the intersection site distance analysis. We conducted it for the existing center access drive, which will be the main access drive in the future, to determine whether it meets the standards set forth by CONDOT or followed by the town of Fairfield. A speed study was conducted by Portable Radar Gun by Frederick P. Clark Associates on Wednesday, May 6, 2015, between 2:30 and 3 p.m. This is an off-peak time period, and speeds are generally higher during this time period. It was found from the vehicle sample obtained that the 85th percentile speed was 30.2 miles per hour in the eastbound direction and 25.2 miles per hour in the westbound direction. Based on the available intersection site distance as measured in the field by a measuring wheel and the 85th percentile speeds of vehicles on Commerce Drive, there is adequate site distance to both the left and right from this driveway. Lastly, just finishing up with the parking needs analysis. Our parking needs analysis includes parking supply requirements based on Fairfield Town Code, which requires 195 parking spaces. The applicant proposes to provide 187 parking spaces. We also took a look at the industry standard ITE parking generation manual, which estimates 191 spaces are required based on the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is the peak parking demand, which is estimated in December, and that's typically when retail is at its busiest. However, this is a mixed-use development, and retail, office, and residential parking demand peak at different times. The town code parking requirements and the ITE parking generation report treat all land uses as if they were individual developments and isolated from one another. Therefore, we conducted a shared parking analysis, which accounts for the different peaking characteristics of each land use. Just for example, office parking typically peaks in the middle of the day, retail parking demand typically peaks in the late afternoon, and residential parking demand typically peaks after 10 p.m. at night. The shared parking analysis is based on the industry standard shared parking report, which utilizes the unadjusted IT parking demand data to account for multi-use developments such as this. We conducted the analysis for both a weekday and weekend condition, and the findings indicate that in the worst case condition, which would be in December at approximately 5 p.m. on a weekday, and in December at approximately 8 p.m. on the weekend, the adjusted parking demand is 146 vehicles, which is significantly less than what we're proposing to provide. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them about the traffic or the parking. Oh, sorry, one more slide. I just wanted to quickly review everything I went over because I know there's a lot of detail. As far as traffic access and safety, there's significant benefits in reducing the number of access drives from 321, specifically the number of conflict points between merging and diverging traffic on Commerce Drive. The access drive that's proposed has satisfactory sight lines in both directions to the left and right. An excellent level of services will be provided at the site access drive during all peak hours. As far as traffic impact, just to review, there'll be no change in the level of service or letter grade of any of the approaches or lane groups to the study area intersections. And as far as parking is concerned, there's shared benefits of having several different types of land uses on one development, and that's seen by the reduction in number of parking spaces that we feel is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. Mr. Chairman, I'd now like to conclude. The application did not require inland wetland approval from the Conservation Commission, and that there were no inland wetlands on site or adjacent to the premises. The drainage report was made available to the Town Engineering Department. Laura Pulley of the Engineering Department confirmed in her report to your commission that, quote, stormwater attenuation, groundwater recharge, and water quality improvements have been provided for and meet our requirements for the 2-year through 100-year storm event, end quote. Ms. Pulley further notes that the applicant is proposing the use of porous pavement, which significantly reduces the amount of runoff generated from the site and provides for groundwater recharge. I think this may be the first significant commercial use of porous pavement in the town. The applicable zoning regulations are a combination of the Commerce Drive area design district regulations and the transit-oriented development park regulations. This regulatory structure makes reference to the Section 25 special permit standards. I'd like to briefly review the Section 25 provisions. Sections 25.7.1 is satisfied since the proposed mixed-use building is a permitted use in the TODP. Section 25.7.2 is satisfied since a detailed site plan has been submitted. The property will be served by public water and public sanitary sewer. Section 25.7.3 is satisfied inasmuch as detailed architectural plans have been submitted. The landscape plan is submitted satisfies the requirements of 25.7.6. These provisions of Section 25.7.7 reference the harmony of the design with the neighborhood, protection of property values in the neighborhood, and avoiding undue traffic congestion. I think the proposed design certainly is in harmony with the spirit and intent of the TODP. The height is consistent with the 5-story office building at 75 Kings Highway, as well as the 4-story office building at the corner of Commerce and Kings Highway East, as well as the adjacent Bigelow Tea headquarters. It's also consistent with the TODP regulations. I think there can be no issue of protecting property values in the neighborhood when significant resources are expended to construct a first-quality, landmark-style building. Such a building can only positively impact property values as well as the appearance and beauty of the area. Lastly, as presented to the Commission, this proposal will not result in undue traffic congestion. In fact, there will be a level of service B as in boy at the site driveway and no drop in the level of service at the affected intersections. The longest increase in waiting time for any turning movement is 3.7 seconds. Finally, The provisions of Section 25.7.8 of the regulations are satisfied since the proposal here incorporates, as envisioned by the P&Z Commission in your enactment of the TODP, several recommendations of the Town Plan of Conservation and Development, including the provision for parking to the rear of the buildings, an increase in permitted building height, and an encouragement of mixed-use proposals. In addition, the application as proposed meets further requirements set forth in the TODP. An affordability plan has been submitted, including information on the construction and management of below-market rate housing units. I would like to address the 10% affordable issue. I know you've received a letter from Mark Barnhart in that regard. 101 units are proposed. The regulatory requirement is 10%. My client believes that a fair and reasonable interpretation of 10%, given that 10% is 10.1 units, is 10 units, i.e. rounding down is appropriate. I would submit that's reasonable. I submitted an application in Westport recently. The number of residential units was 12. The requirement was 20%, i.e. 2.4 units. Westport accepted 2 affordable units. I realize I'm in Fairfield, not Westport. Our position is that 10 units of affordable housing satisfies the reasonable regulatory requirement. If the Commission disagrees with this interpretation, the applicant would prefer an approval with a condition of approval that the affordability plan accommodate 11 affordable units rather than a denial.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fitzpatrick, you would say it under a condition of approval, you accept the 11 rather than a denial, is that what you're saying?
Rather than a denial, absolutely.
Okay.
I would prefer the 10.
I understand, I don't think, we don't so much dictate that number as so much as the state does, correct?
No, well, it's under the...
No, that's a town regulation.
For what we're trying to get to as far as our inventory, though, that would really come from the state. They recommend that? Okay.
If I can just wrap, Mr. Barrett, I'll
You can wrap and then I...
in 1 second. I am aware that several letters in support of this application have been submitted. I'd like to submit 3 more letters of support, which I believe are not submitted. For the reasons outlined, I'd request this application be approved. My clients and I and the various experts would be happy to answer any questions the Commission may have. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yeah, I mean, I understand this presentation, it was up there, I had questions at different point in time, but I held it to the end because I didn't want to ask a question in the...
Understood.
So, I don't like to ask scattered questions, Mr. Chairman, but they're on different topics. So,
Understood.
I'll start with the one you just talked about, out of order, the affordability plan. I understand that, the 10 versus that. Yeah, what I don't understand is, why not just go, why wasn't the application just 100 units at 10%? Why, it was not, in terms of spirit, that would have been easier. Then you didn't have to do the 11th unit, and that seems just so better quantitatively.
My client believed that the reasonable interpretation of 101 was 10. He followed with that interpretation. That's how we ended up where we are.
Okay. Well, now, my next question is, because I see that there's so much retail and there's 4 stories of office. What is the percentage of residential to total square footage of this property?
It's 30%.
Okay.
What we did was, the 4 floors, strictly residential. The first floor is commercial, and we attributed the covered parking all to commercial, and the numbers become 70-30.
Okay, so it is 70-30.
Yes.
I just didn't see that anywhere here. It probably is, and I was just wondering how that was achieved. Because I understood that it was achieved, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, that's good. My next question, I'm sorry for the scatterness, is for Mr. Garrett.
Traffic.
Traffic.
Garrett.
The traffic engineer. I apologize, I forgot your last name. Garrett Colella. Okay, I saw the sight lines, and you said they comply. There was a letter we received from the town engineer today, and she said, how did you, because I understand how you calculate the required site distance,
right.
But the available, it was said it was done visually. Are there any profiles or documentation that'll be submitted to support it? Because one of them was 386 versus 390, not,
Yeah.
it wasn't meeting it by, 100 feet, it was pretty close, so.
Yeah, it wasn't just done visually, it was done with a measuring wheel in the field. Since it's an existing driveway, we can park the car there, and then we can travel down the street and follow the actual curvature of the road with a measuring wheel. But we would be happy to provide on a plan a profile and plan view of the sight lines
Okay.
as part of the application.
Yeah, that's what we usually say, but yeah, I understand you actually measured it out.
Yeah, it was physically measured.
The profile, it's just not a number in a table or something behind.
Correct.
Okay. And then my next question for you is just... Yeah, sorry about that. It wasn't really on, so I just talk loud. Yeah. There you go. And I try to use it too, but okay. Sorry about that. This is transit-oriented development, and it wants to qualify as such. And if somebody's living there and they want to use the new train station, which I'm assuming a lot of them will, whether it's to go to work, could you just describe the walking path or how somebody walks to the train station from this site?
Oh, they would travel down to the west on Commerce Drive, onto Kings Highway East, and then
Walk up that
to
way.
the train station.
Okay.
And there's sidewalks along
And there's sidewalks.
the frontage of the roadway.
Okay,
in
but
that
that's the
route.
route they would take.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's it. That was it, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Alessi?
Mr. Fitzpatrick, do you have any problems with us, or under a condition of approval, adding sidewalks on Black Rock Turnpike as well?
I absolutely do, Mr. Lesson. Let me address that. There's a sidewalk directly adjacent to the building. I believe it will satisfy the regulation. If you want a
Is that open to the
sidewalk,
public?
there's no point for the public to use it. It just goes along the side of the building.
Black
If-
Rock Turnpike.
If you go on Black Rock Turnpike,
If you look,
I would like to hand out
please.
probably 20 photographs.
Yeah.
And what you will see, number one, there's a guardrail. This is a state highway, and there's a guardrail a foot off the traveled portion, and there's a significant grade, which makes that construction extremely difficult, if feasible at all. Number two, you end up with a sidewalk to nowhere. It creates an extremely dangerous pedestrian situation. If there were a sidewalk and someone walked up to the Bigelow driveway where the sidewalk ceases and there is no way to get across that bridge, if you want to go south, you are now walking next to traffic in a situation where there's no sight line. It's dangerous in both directions. And God forbid you decide to cross over, you're putting yourself in imminent peril.
What happens, though, if we have employees from Bigelow that want to go to the retail stores, or if there's a restaurant there or something like that? That's my concern, is that...
What they'll do, Mr. Alessi, is walk right down there, they'll walk down their access way right across through the trees.
So they'll...
Well, I think the point is that the nature of the regulations and the goal of the overlay is to promote building which will enhance walkability and, throughout the entire district, not just for the purposes of your building or the applicant's building. Don't get me wrong, the Commerce Drive side of the site is beautiful. Plaza, street lamps, etc. The rendering on the cover page here, if you're looking at the front entrance to the left on Black Rock Turnpike, there's a little person there walking along. Is that on?
That person is on our property.
Is on your property. I see. Okay. Because I also saw I have to find it again now.
But he's not on the sidewalk.
That there was a hedge right in between that sidewalk. Yeah. So there are trees in between that sidewalk, right, and the grass strip of the road. Is that right?
Eric Raines again.
Thanks.
The corner is comprised of an opening in the sidewalk that comes along Commerce Drive. to allow people access onto this existing crosswalk.
Right, it looks beautiful.
And so, once you get past that opening to make the connection onto the crosswalk, the landscaping begins right away again, and then becomes that landscaping I mentioned that runs along the length of that side of the building.
Right, so if there is a person on that sidewalk on Black Rock Turnpike, I wouldn't be able to see him from the road.
No,
I'm not
yes,
talking about
the-
sightlines, whatever, I'm just looking at the rendering and trying to put it all together.
Well, I mean, this area here is at about the elevation of the top of the curve. So you would see, if somebody were walking here, you would see
You're not
them.
pointing in the same place that I'm pointing down the building in the middle.
Oh, down here?
Yeah, it was a
Correct.
little bit further
Black
up.
Rock Turnpike,
A little bit further up. Yeah, it's, and that's where I'm picturing the
right about
the
there.
pedestrian and the car.
Right, right, as you travel south on Black Rock Turnpike, it climbs.
Yeah.
So where Black Rock Turnpike and the building are more on grade here, the farther south you go, Black Rock's higher. So this grade, this walkway that is that's along the base of the building stays level at this elevation. So the farther you are down this walkway, the less visible you would be from the street.
Oh, it's actually cut.
Yes, yes.
I didn't.
And that's
I
just
didn't
the way
get
the
that.
site's configured.
I didn't get that.
Because if you imagine...
So you're actually walking
rising, the
down.
building is staying.
Exactly. At the corner,
You could look down almost into the
Correct.
first story from the road,
I want to look at the pictures.
They have a large retaining wall, it's probably...
I think you need to use the microphone.
yeah, what I was saying is that the driveway for Bigelow existing today is a retaining wall that holds it higher than our property. So the Black Rock Turnpike climbs to meet that grade versus the first floor of our building that stays level at that lower elevation.
So at about the elevations, and honestly, it's difficult to tell from
Sure.
the schematics, and I have to go out and visit the site and such, but, so, the driveway for Bigelow, where would you think that would be approximately on the side of the building?
Approximately, and George, it's approximately the same as our amenity terrace.
About the same height as the terrace, so
Yes,
really,
about.
a full story up?
Yes.
Yeah. And at that point, the person on the end of the sidewalk, at the bottom of those stairs, is basically at a wall.
They're, correct, and just keep in mind, the intention of that sidewalk isn't for daily circulation. As someone mentioned earlier, there's an egress stair from the terrace
Yeah.
in this corner, and one of the main reasons it extends this far is so during an emergency,
Yeah.
someone can exit the amenity terrace, get there, and make their way out.
Well, that was the other question I had about the access along that side of the street, right? Because how do people get out of the building on that side of the...
That's how.
Are there emergency exits on that side of the building that
Yes.
lead to that sidewalk that
Yes.
runs on that side? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
Commissioner
the dumpster situation's in the middle of the parking lot, correct?
Say what?
Was it
The
on-
dumpsters are in the middle of the parking lot, on a lower level?
Dumpsters? It looked like there were two.
Yeah.
Let's just hold it for a second. Commissioner Canelli, let's just deal with subject matters in order.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sidewalks, yeah, no,
No,
go ahead.
the only thing I just conceptually wanted to touch on about the sidewalks, Mr. Fitzpatrick, and I understand looking at the photograph you submitted, what your concern is, that the idea that essentially a pedestrian is running right into what amounts to a dead end. The reason I'm concerned about the lack of a sidewalk, and I don't know how signage or something could be dealt with, is under this design, which I understand, your building stays level, the road bridge, essentially the roadway rises with the bridge, the railroad bridge. What I don't like about it is that I like the concept that you're going to have this ground floor retail and attempt to, you know, kind of make that corner area a living one where people have to go in and out of those buildings, and I'm out of those stores, and I like that very much. I like it a lot. But my concern is that even though I don't want to put the applicant, I don't want to require the applicant to do something that is, you know, costly, and ultimately it's clear that that pedestrian area is one that doesn't have a way to go over the bridge. The shielding
that occurs. Now really what it does is it negates some of the impact change there. Because I will tell you, I drive past there a lot. My son is involved with the Wolfpack baseball team over the bridge and things like that. We go to the movie theater. So my concern there is that oftentimes people rush in to beat some of those lights and things like that, that, you know, the speeds aren't 30, 35 miles an hour. Oftentimes you'll see folks going much faster. And, you know, even with appropriate signage, I'm wondering about the potential kind of positive effect of still a space where pedestrians can be seen. Otherwise, that, to me at least, some of the traffic calming value of what you have when you have pedestrian space in front of a building is negated. Here, you're going to have people zooming by because there's not going to be anybody at all on that area. I mean, I just, it's not so much a question, but I'm just saying to you, is that something I'm weighing as I'm thinking about whether to ask you to make this choice? I completely understand. I think it's a very valid point you're making, which is we don't want to walk someone into a wall and have nowhere to go. But on the other hand, with appropriate signage, there's still maybe some value to some kind
I
of...
recognize what you're talking about, Mr. Kennelly, in terms of the pedestrian, people on the street slowing down traffic, and Mr. Galante's made that clear to me. But the grade is such here that it's just not feasible. There's a significant drop in grade. Now, you know, people who want to get to the movie theaters, that's why we have a crosswalk and a dedicated sidewalk up the hill, over the bridge. It makes perfect sense. I just don't think it's wise to put people in a situation where they may think the sidewalk continues, then they either walk over that bridge or try to beat traffic when you've got a hill and somebody going north has no idea they're on the other side of the bridge, the other side of the hill.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is it just kind of, it shuts off that whole section, you know? And, so, it's just something to think about. So, anyone else have anything on the sidewalk issue? Okay. Commissioner Alessi?
I just have questions pretty much.
Dumpsters.
On the dumpsters and how you're going to service the retail, basically.
Okay, there's two trash rooms in the project. One, there's a residential one that's in this corner of underneath the building, and the reason for that is trash chutes on every floor, and obviously that would be right over the trash room. And there's a second trash room over here on the edge of the covered parking, and that is for the commercial use only, and it can come right out. It's very common for these types of projects to bring the dumpsters out when the trash is picked up, once a week or whatever the frequency is. They're pretty much all done that way. This doesn't seem to be an issue in terms of maintenance. They have maintenance people there all the time.
So what level are the trash chutes on?
They're on the grade level at the parking level. Oh, the trash chutes are on every floor, and they let out on the grade level at the parking.
So there's a dumpster under...
There's a covered, enclosed trash room for that.
Right, and then that gets wheeled out to the parking lot?
Correct. It's when the truck picks up.
Truck comes out into the parking lot and picks it up?
Comes in here, and they wheel it out.
So I see the truck operator actually goes in and gets the thing and wheels it out?
Actually, the maintenance people, the truck operator does not want to do that. The maintenance guy has to wheel it out.
It's in the driveway.
And the loading for the retailers, where will that take place?
Well, it's right below here. So
No, not the dumpster, but as far as deliveries and all sorts of stuff like that.
So the trucks come in on here, and there's a loading space here off the driveway. So they can turn around and come in and park along there.
Okay.
And all the retail spaces, front entrances on both sides, so they would just go in the front doors of the, you know...
Well, we are providing this arcade along the back
Yeah.
here, so those retail spaces could have an entrance on this side.
Well, they're see-through, they're floor-through.
Depending how they lay it out, yes.
I
They have the choice. They have two frontages.
Could be, right.
Are you expecting any restaurants or just retail?
I mean, that
says grilling.
At this point, we've parked it for the entire space for retail. We just don't know what the future will bring.
I'm just saying, you know, if it becomes a restaurant for some reason, the complex can handle the garbage, the refuse, whatever goes along with the restaurant.
I don't think there's any question we've got.
I mean, having the two trash, that's part of the reason having the two trash rooms, separate out the commercial from the residential.
Do you guys know the height of the the terrace? I know you guys said a delivery truck can get under there.
We're looking at 13 feet clear.
Tim, you have to use the mic.
We're looking to get 13 feet clear underneath the structure of the terrace.
Okay, so obviously garbage trucks won't have an issue getting under there. What about emergency vehicles, fire truck, ambulance, stuff of that nature? Will they have any issue as far as the width goes? Will you not anticipate them having to get in?
My experience is they don't usually want to go underneath the building. They don't like to bring their trucks under any covered structure, so they would pull in here in the parking lot.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering, on here, they come in, they've only got, there's not much room for them to turn around, is all I'm getting at. I mean, without going underneath, because that's what you're saying, the delivery trucks are going to go under, come back and stop over there. That's my concern right now.
And they can also turn around in the western parking lot.
Make a complete circle.
Correct.
Go in and go all the way around.
Correct.
Go all the way around like that.
Well, 13 feet's high enough for an ambulance.
It is.
Oh.
A ladder truck, I'm not sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Coleman.
I have a question for Mr. Ames. On the landscape plan, you're aware that Fairfield's landscape regs call for the canopy trees, parking area to be interspersed among the parking spaces.
Yes.
It looks like there's a lot of clustering of the canopies and then pretty good swaths of parking space with no tree near them. Could you just comment on that?
We located them, as you mentioned, we took advantage of the islands that are created as around the parking circulation to get 4 trees more in the middle of the main parking area, and then we flanked this edge of it so that this area was more separated from the area here, and then we took advantage of this island that's in the middle of these spaces to get the canopy trees in there. So what our goal was, aside from separating it from Commerce Drive, our goal was to get the bulk of the trees more in the middle of the space so that as they mature, then it occupies the full, you get more of an advantage of the full canopy of the tree rather than locating it on the edge where really the property would only benefit from half of the canopy.
Is there room to sneak in a tree or two along that leftmost edge where you have 14 parking spaces and no trees?
Along here?
Yeah.
When you leave our property and you go to the adjacent property, there you can see in this photograph there are large trees on the adjacent property, but there's a retaining wall as well that separates the two, similar to what we were talking about here on Bigelow, but not quite as tall. So we don't have continuous land from our property to the adjacent property.
Can't be done.
Well, we could, right here, for example, get trees at least that are in a little bit more. We could relocate some of our trees into those sort of corner pockets, and at least it gets them more interior to the parking area.
Maybe one on the corner of the lower left. Go to your, or my right. Yeah, right.
Right here?
No, up a little, right there.
Right
in
there?
That, in
We
that.
could do that as well.
In that area, something like. Anyway, anyone else?
Right, and one of the,
Mr. Fair?
Is he finished?
Yeah.
How wide is the access road? 24?
Tim is saying 24 feet.
Yeah, okay. And someone asked about the fire truck. This passed code when the fire chief was happy with the access and the turnaround.
Assistant Chief Kessler explicitly said he was okay with the
All right,
access.
all right. And can you tell me, what is a life safety generator?
Excuse me?
What is a life safety generator?
Backup generator.
Just the low lighting?
Correct. There's an
power.
electrical generator that will provide the emergency lighting in the hallways and provide power to the elevator, so that could be used in an emergency to get
Okay.
people in
Thank
stretchers
you.
out.
All right, and the trees, I had that same concern. And the cabanas, what are they structured of? Is it metal?
We have a slide of it, but they're like a lattice top.
Right.
It's not intended
Is
to
it
be a...
metal? Or
No, they'll be wood, or an AZAC kind of
They're
product.
what?
Either wood or AZAC kind of product.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sure.
So, I didn't see, on the plan, I didn't have a chance to look for it, the bicycle racks that are mentioned as the amenities in the, like the parks, whatever. Can you just point those out?
Sure. They're in two areas on Commerce Drive, and they're at the opposite ends of these double groupings.
Oh, they're in there.
There's one here, and then one here. John, what plan are those labeled on? In your package, if you look at SPL 2.2, they're a little more obvious. So they're labeled, I mean, they're drawn here and here.
Oh, I see. Very good.
Yeah, they're just a small graphic. It's hard to see them.
Anyone else have any questions? No? All right.
Mr. Chairman, in closing, your commission in creating the transit-oriented development park established a template for development of transit-supportive mixed-use proposals. My clients have taken that initiative to heart, put together, I think, a quality proposal designed in accordance with that template. The proposal here will likely be a landmark building. It will certainly occupy one of the most visible corners in the Commerce Drive area. I think it'll set an architectural standard for this area and will initiate the transformation of the westerly end of Commerce Drive to a transit-oriented, pedestrian-friendly area. The letters, I think, that you've received are all very supportive. There are other supportive letters that my client forwarded me sitting in my office somewhere, unfortunately. But for the reasons we've outlined, I'd request that this application be approved. We'd be happy to answer any other questions that the commission may have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard on this item?
My name is Pete Penzer. I'm a resident of Fairfield. My brother and I own the property diagonally across the street on the corner of Commerce Drive and Black Rock Turnpike where Sweet Basil is located, and also the property at the corner of Commerce Drive and Kings Highway East where Rio Bravo is located. And as neighbors, we're in full support of this project and welcome it to the area. I'm also chairman of the Town Planning and Economic Development Commission. And our commission was presented with this proposal, and we gave it quite a bit of consideration and voted unanimously to support the proposal. And so from that standpoint, we also welcome the project to the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Steve Grothwall from 132 Adley Drive here in Fairfield. I'm chairman of the Affordable Housing Committee in town, but I'm speaking on my own behalf. The committee did not get information in time to review and vote officially on the development, although we all have discussed it. And I think if we had a chance to vote on it officially, we would have unanimously supported it. But for myself, I'm very excited to support this development for at least 5 reasons. One is, I think that it is a very good-looking, well-thought-out design. 2, I think it's a good, experienced team backing the design. 3, it's been about, I think, 7 years or so since the town did the architectural charrette for this neighborhood. 4 or 5 years since the regulations were changed. And this is the first development that I'm aware of that has come in under those regulations. 4, I think that this is the start of a new neighborhood, a new type of neighborhood for the town. And I think that when this development is done, I hope that will encourage other developers, other property owners to come through with other developments in the neighborhood. And fifth, that we will get, because of this development, the town will receive 10, maybe even 11 affordable housing units. Thank you.
Probably 11.
Hi, Sally Parker, 194 Alberta Street, Fairfield, a former member of this commission, and I want to say how much I'm pleased at the views of this new development. It's certainly the sort of thing on the planning sessions we had that I think we are all very much committed to, and I hope in the spirit of that hard work that we did at the time that this is the sort of project the commission will approve. I have a question or two. Is the fenestration fixed, or can people open their windows?
Why don't you just pose the questions and applicant can answer them in
Oh, you
rebuttal.
can't. I can ask you.
No, you could do that when you sat on this side of the table.
Right, I can't do, all right, I'll give it up.
Not for that one. What's the other question?
Oh, pardon me?
What was your other
Well,
question?
the other, that's fine. That'll, I won't go into architectural detail. Right, thank you.
Is there any other member of the public that wishes to be heard?
Hi, my name's Bob Frigo, Campbell Road in Fairfield. I've been a resident over 40 years. I am on the Affordable Housing Commission, but I'm speaking as a citizen that I really think the town needs to do a lot more in economic development. This looks like a first-class project. That neighborhood is, that area of town really needs an upgrade, and I just think it fits in with the new railroad station. I think it's a great project. And I think the team presented very impressive, made a very impressive presentation.
Very good, thank you very much. Anyone else?
My name's Paul Gustafson. I own 682 Commerce Drive, right across the street from this project. And I think I'm in favor of this. It looks really good. It seems to be just what the town's been looking for this area, and I'm looking forward to for you guys to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Anyone else wish to be heard? Going once, twice. Okay. We had one question posed.
Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to report the window's open.
Thank you.
I have nothing further.
Very good. I will close the public hearing and adjourn the meeting.